My father and my stepmother have been together for a little over a decade. I'll call her Nikki. She didn't move in with him until years after I had moved out, so I've never been close with her. I don't actually call her stepmother. To be honest, Nikki annoys me. She is childish and naive in ways that often feel forced. She'll speak in a high-pitched voice and replace random words with the baby version of them. Think boo-boo and wee-wee. I'm always nice to her, of course, but I don't like being around her for long. I didn't dislike her at first, but when my kids, 6-year-old boy and 3-year-old girl, were born, Nikki's antics almost immediately went up to 11. Whenever she's around them, she acts either younger or the same age as them. I can never tell whether she's trying to get their attention or my father's, but it's gotten to the point that my husband and I try to minimize contact between her and our children. My daughter's 3rd birthday party took place about a week ago, and both my dad and Nikki came. At one point, I noticed that rather than take a seat at the tables like the other adults, Nikki was walking around talking to the kids. It was odd, but no one seemed bothered, so I didn't do anything about it. Half an hour later, my 5-year-old goddaughter came up to me and asked why there was a lady talking like a baby. She told me she was scary and that she didn't want to play with the other kids while she was around. I went up to Nikki and suggested that she sit down. I explained that the kids wanted to play by themselves and that having an adult around like that would bother them. She seemed fine with it. Sometime later, my daughter ran to me crying. She said Nikki wasn't letting her play with her friends. At that, my husband and I pulled Nikki aside. From what I gathered, the girls were trying to play princesses and she was trying to dictate who everyone should be. We told Nikki once again to take a seat and leave the kids alone. She tried to argue with us, saying she was only trying to make sure they were having fun. I replied, "They aren't. You're not a child. They don't want to play with you. I know you mean well, but you're embarrassing yourself, so please sit down and stop bothering them." She stood there for a few seconds before she took a seat next to my father. The party continued without issue. I later found out that at least 3 of the other kids had also complained to their parents, but they didn't tell me. One of them figured Nikki was an entertainer I'd hired. A couple days later, my father called and told me off for how I treated his wife. He says that Nikki is heartbroken and that I was extremely rude when she just wanted to play with the kids. I reminded him that the children didn't want to be around her, but he's still insisting I apologize. My husband told me that someone had to do something as the kids were upset. I feel like this is a dumb issue, but I can't help but feel like I might have acted rudely. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Here is the apology. Nikki, I am sorry that you can't seem to get over the fact that you aren't a child anymore and need to act like an adult. The kids didn't want to play with you, and that was fine. It hurt your feelings. Well, it's time to grow up and realize your feelings aren't mine or anyone else's responsibility other than your own. Not the idiot. Comment 2. Not the idiot. You were too kind, patient. Why would you feel bad about an infantile idiot getting upset with you? Tell your dad he has a spouse problem, and he should work on that without bothering you. Oh, he can't work on that because she is an infantile idiot, so he'll bother you instead. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments and support on my last post. It's been a wild 3 months since then, and I've got quite the update for you. So after the birthday party fiasco, things were pretty tense between my dad, Nikki, and me. I tried to smooth things over by inviting them over for dinner a couple weeks later, hoping we could talk it out like adults. Well, that didn't go as planned. Nikki showed up wearing a princess dress, complete with a tiara and a wand. I thought maybe she was trying to make amends with the kids. But nope, she spent the entire evening prancing around the house talking in that high-pitched baby voice and trying to get everyone to play along with her princess fantasy. My kids were visibly uncomfortable, and my husband and I were at our wits' end. We tried to gently remind Nikki that this wasn't appropriate behavior, but she just wouldn't listen. My dad, bless his heart, just sat there looking embarrassed, but didn't say a word. Things came to a head when Nikki tried to knight my son with her wand. He burst into tears and ran out of the room. That's when I lost it. I told Nikki in no uncertain terms that her behavior was unacceptable and that she needed to leave. My dad got defensive, saying I was being too harsh, but I stood my ground. They left, and I haven't spoken to either of them since. Now here's where things get complicated. A few weeks after the dinner disaster, I got a call from my dad's sister, my Aunt Linda. She told me that when my dad first started dating Nikki, the family had some concerns about her mental health. Apparently, Nikki had a history of unstable relationships and erratic behavior, but my dad was so smitten that he didn't want to hear it. Aunt Linda said she'd always felt guilty for not pushing the issue more, and she apologized for not giving me a heads up sooner. It was a lot to process, but it did help explain some of Nikki's behavior. I tried reaching out to my dad to talk about it, but he wouldn't return my calls. I even stopped by their house a few times, but no one answered the door. I was starting to get really worried. Finally, about a month ago, I got a call from my dad. He sounded exhausted. He told me that Nikki had a breakdown and was in the hospital. He didn't go into details, but he said she'd been struggling with some mental health issues for a while, and things had finally come to a head. I felt terrible. As much as Nikki's behavior had bothered me, I never wanted something like this to happen. I asked my dad if there was anything I could do to help, but he said he needed to focus on getting Nikki the help she needed. In the weeks since, I've been doing a lot of reflecting. I keep thinking about how I handled things with Nikki and wondering if I could have been more understanding. At the same time, I had to prioritize my kids' well-being. It's a tough balance. My dad and I have started talking again, but things are still strained. He's been spending most of his time at the hospital with Nikki, and I'm trying to give them space while still being supportive. I guess the takeaway from all this is that you never really know what someone else is going through. Nikki's behavior was inappropriate and hurtful, but it was coming from a place of pain that I didn't fully understand. I'm hopeful that with time and treatment, Nikki will get the help she needs, and I'm hopeful that my dad and I can find a way to rebuild our relationship. It's not going to be easy, but family rarely is. Anyway, that's where things stand now. Thanks for letting me vent and for all the support and advice. It means a lot. Am I the idiot for choosing my sister over my stepsister and refusing to do her makeup for prom? I, 18-year-old female, had my sister, 22-year-old female, do my makeup for prom last year and again this year. My sister is really good at doing makeup and we're close, which is why she was cool with doing my makeup both times, and for free LOL. But this year was a little more of a big deal and I want to hear what others say. So for the last 8 years, we've had a stepsister and she's a year younger than me. Our mom married our stepsister's dad. My sister is no longer in contact with our mom, her husband, and our stepsister. We kept in touch, but she only talks to me and doesn't have anything to do with our stepsister. But last year, my stepsister got really jealous that my sister did my prom makeup, and she was upset that she wasn't invited along. She wanted sister time, so this year, because she was also going to prom, she wanted my sister to do her makeup too, and we could all hang out while it happened. But my sister didn't want to do it, and I still wanted my sister to do it and didn't care that I wouldn't have my stepsister there. She's okay, but I don't think of us as close or as sisters. Because I did go to my sister so she could do my makeup, my mom and her husband were pretty pissed off that I went again, knowing she excluded our stepsister. Mom told me I could have stayed, and my stepsister and I could have done each other's makeup, and we could have bonded better. I told Mom that wasn't what I wanted, and I wanted my sister to do it. It became a fight. My mom's husband asked why he and Mom got married if the three of us, me, sister, and stepsister, weren't going to have a sisterly relationship. I told him I couldn't answer that because I didn't have any choice. A week and a half after prom, my stepsister came into my room and read this letter she wrote about how badly I hurt her feelings, and saying all she wanted was for us to see her as a sister and treat her the same as we treat each other. I know it was meant to make me feel guilty because she kept getting more and more into her wishes and dreams and how she had a rough life before her dad married our mom. But I was in the middle of finishing a final project, and it annoyed me that she was in there. And when she didn't get me to feel guilty, she called me an intimacy worker. I told my sister what was going on, and she ended up telling me to move in with her, which I did. And that's when my mom really went crazy on telling me how awful I was. She asked me if my sister doing my makeup was worth all this, and she told me I should be ashamed of the selfish decision I made when I went ahead with it. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. You have every right to have your makeup done by your sister, and she has every right to refuse doing your stepsister's. Even more so that she's no contact with your mom, stepdad, and stepsister. It's absolutely not your or your sister's responsibility to include your stepsister in things. Weird move of your stepdad to make that comment about, why did we get married? What? Comment 2. My mom's husband asked why he and mom got married if the three of us, me, sister, and stepsister, weren't going to have a sisterly relationship. LOL, so he didn't marry your mother because he loves your mother, but because he wanted an automatic family for his daughter. Not the idiot now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. It's been a month since I moved in with my sister, and a lot has happened since then. The first week after moving in, my mom kept calling and texting me, trying to guilt trip me into coming back home. She kept saying things like, "Your stepsister is heartbroken, and you're tearing this family apart." I tried to explain my side of things, but she just wouldn't listen. It got to the point where I had to block her number for a while just to get some peace. Meanwhile, my stepsister started spreading rumors about me at school. She told everyone that I was a selfish witch who only cared about myself. It was really hard to deal with, especially since I was already stressed out about finals and everything else going on in my life. But my sister was there for me through it all. She helped me study for my exams and even took me out for ice cream when things got really tough. It was nice to have someone in my corner, you know? A couple of weeks ago, my mom showed up at my sister's apartment unannounced. She started banging on the door, demanding to see me. When my sister answered, my mom pushed past her and started yelling at me, saying that I needed to come home and apologize to my stepsister. That's when my sister lost it. She told my mom that she had no right to barge into her home like that, and that if she didn't leave, she'd call the cops. My mom was so shocked that she actually left without another word. Later that night, my sister and I had a long talk. She told me that she'd been dealing with our mom's manipulation and guilt tripping for years, and that's why she cut off contact with her. She said that our mom always tried to control everything and everyone around her, and that she couldn't take it anymore. It was a real eye-opener for me. I realized that my mom had been doing the same thing to me for years, but I just never noticed it before. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, knowing that I wasn't the only one who felt this way. Since then, things have been a lot better. I've been focusing on my studies and hanging out with my friends, and my sister and I have been growing even closer. We've even started talking about getting an apartment together after I graduate high school. As for my stepsister, I haven't heard from her in a while. I think she's still upset about everything that happened. But I'm not going to apologize for wanting to spend time with my sister. I know that might sound harsh, but I have to do what's best for me, you know? Anyway, that's pretty much everything that's happened in the past month. Thanks for reading and for all your support. It really means a lot to me. Am I the idiot for ignoring Weenie while saving a man's life and later exposing a sinister secret? Please do not share this outside Reddit. I'll try to keep it short. I, 40-year-old female, witnessed a dude have a seizure, which I was able to identify because my best friend is epileptic and has been since we were kids. A few bystanders came over and helped me stabilize him as he was a big dude, and I'm an average-sized woman. Another woman and I were on the ground with him when suddenly a not-at-all good Samaritan we'll call Weenie shows up and starts barking wrong orders and instructions. Neither of us listen to him or act on his demands. He gets louder and louder and starts recording, saying it's evidence that these women refuse to let me help this man. Eventually, the seizing stops and EMS and the police show up. Weenie immediately accosts the medics and cops, shouting about how he was trying to help and nobody would listen to or let him. After everyone chatted, EMS confirms what we did for the seizing man was correct. Weenie is outraged and then decides to direct his ire square at me and tells me that all I had to do was explain it to him in the first place. Internally, I was like, what? You're suggesting the correct answer was for me to take my attention off a medical emergency and explain to you why and how I was doing what I was doing, not doing. But I said, I do not owe you or your ego any explanation for anything ever, most certainly not in the middle of a medical emergency. But for your information, my best friend of 25 plus years is epileptic. This is how I know what to do and not to do in the event of a seizure. He yelled, "That's all you had to say." At this point, even the cops piped up, and one said verbatim, "No, she didn't, bro. She was focused on helping the guy." I felt like I didn't do anything wrong, but was also kind of rattled. So when my friend's wife later said I was being harsh and arrogant, by not acknowledging and/or addressing Weenie during the actual seizure and later referring to his ego in my speech to him. I kind of felt like a jerk. She said he too was also just trying to help and possibly prevent a disaster, and then asked who anointed me the Jesus of the situation. I said I wasn't being arrogant, Jesus. I was simply the first one to get to the guy, knew he was having a seizure, and knew what to do, so I did it and didn't concern myself with a dude screaming, again, wrong orders in the background. Outside the screaming guy, it was really a scene full of good people trying to help and made me feel better about humanity even. And then this friend's wife basically called me an arrogant jerk, am I? Edit. Thanks for all the feedback and positivity. I appreciate it more than you guys know. A special thanks to the epileptics, friends and family of epileptics, and EMTs who commented. Also, those of you who said my friend's wife does not like me, you are all correct. She does not like any of his female friends. Most of us are gay, so that makes it extra funny. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. He is mad that he didn't get to play the hero and taking it out on you. Also, just a side note, don't post things on here if you don't want them shared with a wide audience. Your post could potentially be seen by millions of people if it goes viral and you can't control that. Comment 2. Not the idiot. It sounds like the guy wanted to be the main character of the situation. Friend's wife is out of line too. You don't need to acknowledge someone who is making a situation worse's feelings in the moment. Focus on helping the person who needs it. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a couple of weeks since my last post, and I wanted to give you all an update on what's been happening. First off, thank you for all the support and kind words in the comments. It really meant a lot to me during this whole situation. So a few days after the incident with Weenie and the seizure, I found out something that really threw me for a loop. Turns out, my best friend's wife, the one who called me arrogant and harsh, had been talking to Weenie behind my back. Apparently, they knew each other from way back, and she had been feeding him information about me and my friendship with her husband. It all started to make sense now. The way she always seemed to have an issue with me, the snide comments, the constant questioning of my motives. I couldn't believe it. I thought we were friends, or at least friendly, but it turns out she had been harboring this resentment towards me for years. I confronted her about it, and she didn't even try to deny it. She said she was just looking out for her husband and that she didn't trust me. I was floored. I had been nothing but a good friend to both of them for over 2 decades, and this is how she repays me. But that's not even the worst part. Remember how I mentioned my best friend is epileptic? Well, it turns out that his wife had been hiding his medication from him. She claimed it was because she was worried about the side effects, but I knew better. She was trying to control him, to make him dependent on her. I had a decision to make. Do I tell my best friend what his wife has been doing, or do I keep quiet and let them work it out themselves? It was eating me up inside. On one hand, I didn't want to cause any more drama or ruin their marriage, but on the other hand, I couldn't just sit back and watch my friend suffer. In the end, I decided to talk to my best friend privately. I told him everything, from the incident with Weenie to his wife's betrayal. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had, but I knew it was the right thing to do. He was devastated, of course. He couldn't believe his wife would do something like that, but he was also grateful that I had told him the truth. He said he had been feeling off for a while now, but he couldn't quite put his finger on why. We talked for hours, reminiscing about old times and trying to make sense of everything that had happened. It was a bittersweet moment, knowing that our friendship had weathered so much, but also realizing that things would never be the same. In the days that followed, my best friend confronted his wife about everything. It was a messy situation with a lot of tears and accusations thrown around. But in the end, they decided to try and work things out, for the sake of their marriage and their kids. As for me, I've been keeping my distance. I don't want to interfere or make things any harder than they already are. But I know that I did the right thing by being honest with my friend, even if it meant risking our friendship. Looking back on everything that's happened, I realize that life is full of tough choices and complicated situations. There's no easy answers, no clear-cut right or wrong. All we can do is try our best to be good people and to look out for the ones we love. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for listening. And thanks again for all the support. It means more than you know. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.